Welcome to another exciting episode of Revenge of the Average Joe Sports Gambling Podcast, where we make you better gamblers. We don't sell you picks. We're just out here teaching you how to take that money back from Vegas. We're average Joes, but we've been gambling for a long time. My name is Matt Dietz. I'm here with my co-host, my betting buddy, my gambling go-to guy, as I like to call him, Kyle Poland. How are you today, my friend?
What an invasive question. All right, how dare you? It is neither your business, nor any business of the government how I am doing, but I am doing well. And I was 2-1 last week, so that helps my mood.
Yes, you are 2-1 last week. You're up $200 on the season in our season-long NFL pregame spread bets, where we are trying to print you guys money. If you've been calling Kyle, you are up significantly. Ryan's had 2 strong weeks in a row going, 6-3 over the last 3 weeks, and I'm looking forward to continuing that this week, where we'll get into our best bets. But first, let's talk about what we learned last week. Kyle discussed his wins. I'm going to go through Ryan's picks, and we'll just get right into some Denver Broncos talk, some Denver Nuggets talk, a little bit of Dietz teach before we break down 6 go-to bets, 6 locks of the week, and Ryan's 3 picks that you can follow along with. Business first, ladies and gentlemen, please follow us on Twitter at RotajJPod, where we should just change our name to @NuggetsBets because we are 6-0 on the season so far. One of our hosts recently went into a Nuggets game with 2 units, walked out of the game paying for his season tickets. So please follow us on Twitter where we're giving out all those picks live. If you're on iTunes, Spotify, like us, give us 5 stars, whatever you like to do. Give us a great review. Or if you hate the show, give us a terrible review. Just give us 5 stars. We love to learn. Let's jump on in. Kyle, let's talk about your week. What'd you win? What'd you lose? And what did you learn?
I took the Falcons, which was the equivalent of taking a penny stock when it's already at $100. So
Yes.
I got a little late on that train. I just didn't trust Cincy's offense, but the Falcons are terrible at pressuring the quarterback, and you can't cover forever against those wide receivers. So they gave up way too many explosive plays. So I had the Falcons minus 6.5 or plus 6.5. I lost that one. I had Washington plus 5 versus Green Bay. They won that game. Green Bay is awful. And then I had under in the Jets and Denver, which was also a very easy win. And I really think we're going to get to the point where it's tough for Vegas to make these point totals low enough to where, I mean, we have explosive players, but we never score. So at a certain point, like, do you drop it to 35? You know, like, you don't want to get killed by sharps, but right now it just feels like the equivalent of the first punt for Denver that we cashed in on last year. That's what it feels like, just taking unders in this game with how good the defense is playing and how bad the offense is playing. So 2-1, 66% again. We'll take those, and we're just trying to stay consistent and stay within ourselves.
Yeah, I love your thoughts about the under there. Of course, you've brought this up before, Kyle, where Vegas doesn't like to get below a certain number, 36, 38. You can make the number higher, but you can't make it too low in the NFL because teams will just score. But it doesn't feel like the Broncos can do that and haven't done that for 5 years. So I love your bets there, Kyle. I'm going to recap Ryan's. He had an insider pick here. Ryan is very familiar with the DU hockey team, so he loves giving out those picks. And last week he brought up Denver hockey minus 1.5 plus 110. And college hockey teams love to pull their goalie, and those games are very frequently decided by 2 goals or more. Got plus 110 win on that one. Thursday night, he did under 44. For the first time all year, the under did not hit Thursday night, where it looks like it'll hit tonight. And then we've got over 47.5 for the Bengals Falcons. Easy cover there for Ryan. So loved his week. I'll just talk about the things I learned for my own picks. I faded Matt Ryan, and much to my dismay, he's been benched. So kind of like we saw here on the show, we found an angle we like to hit. We nailed that multiple times betting against Matt Ryan or going on the under for Indy's points. He's now gone, so I'm going to be rethinking that one. I lost to Jacksonville versus the Giants. It was a heartbreaker there with Jacksonville just a few feet away from scoring. I've been burned by the Giants all year long. So learning from that one, I'm really undervaluing New York, and I need to track my bets. if you track where you're winning money, losing money, you can learn from it. You're just not making those same mistakes over and over. Final one just got blown out of the water by the New England Patriots, expatriates, I should say, because I won't be betting on them again, hosting the Chicago Bears and getting blown out. Should have known when it was a monsoon that the Bears had a chance to win, and I will learn from that going forward. That's what we've learned. Keep following us for great bets. I think Ryan's really turning a page. He's, over the last 3 weeks, really climbed out of a hole, and he's up to, wow, only down a couple units on the year, despite he was down, I think, 8 or 9 at the start of the year. Wonderful trend for him. Really quick, Kyle, I wanted to talk about the Denver Broncos a little bit. I know they're not going to win a Super Bowl, but as Denver fans who watch the games every single week, we can bet on them and hopefully make money. And I wanted to ask you, what are some of the things that you're learning from the Broncos? What would you bet on if you had to bet the games, or maybe you wouldn't? Let's talk about that as we kind of recoup this game.
Yeah, so I think that Courtland Sutton has been getting phased out of this offense after getting off to a really good start. It feels like the only thing we throw to him are down the sideline jump balls that we often just put 5 yards out of bounds. So it feels like the underneath traffic is going to Dulcich, and then Judy's getting some of the, you're in between the like the safety in the corner, those little 15-yard holes. So Sutton, we made some good money early on taking his overs and receptions. I remember you had some good bets on him. Sometimes some same game parlays that you would get some plus odds, and you were kind of plugging him in. I think he's trending downward. I just think that this maybe isn't necessarily gambling, but fantasy is gambling of a sort, right? Unless you play in a free league, what a waste of time. So I would say I think it's looking more and more likely that maybe a Judy gets dealt. And so I think it's not a bad idea to try to buy low on him and hope that some contender says, hey, we're going to have a reclamation product. I mean, look at Tony, who can't stay healthy for the Giants, but he is, a really explosive player when he's out there, and the Chiefs just said, we'll take a risk on it. And so I think some contenders could be doing that, especially with the Eagles signaling with their trade that, hey, we're going all in. Like, we're going to load up. The Chiefs are saying we're going to load up. And so if I was the Bills and I could maybe, spend some draft capital and get someone like that, I wouldn't hate that. So those are my takeaways. And don't bet this week. London is a weird place. And I think both of these teams are in a weird place. I would lean towards Jacksonville, but it's just a lean this week. And even the over-under, I feel like, is weird because I feel like Jags have given up a lot of explosive plays this season. Like you said, they've been in a lot of our bets, so I've watched a lot of Jags. And their defense is not great, so I just don't trust them.
Yeah, I do think you've nailed that on Judy. And I was even thinking maybe this week, look for him on the over yards. If they're going to deal him, he's going to get the ball a little bit more. And Russ is one of those quarterbacks where he's not going to isolate a locker room cancer. I wish he would stand up to Judy. That's just not Russ. He might not even be aware that he's a locker room cancer because he is so removed from the Denver Broncos locker room.
He's busy doing high knees. He's in the aisle doing high knees,
whispering, let's ride as he does it. I just wish that he would turn that into a joke, like high-fiving anybody. Let's ride. Just throw it out there, Russ. If you're listening, which I know he is a frequent listener of the cast, Let's ride. Make it real, man.
Yeah. Some self-awareness.
Self-awareness. Yeah. I'll throw out a couple things here for you, Kyle, and I want your feedback on them. For the Broncos specifically, Broncos punt, I'm looking at that. And then Broncos field goal attempt, the odds on that are way better. You can get that at like plus 300 often on drives that start on the 30 or 40. They might not score a lot of points, but they punt the ball, kick a field goal all the darn time, whereas the punt is closer to like minus 150, minus 200. So I love the value there.
Yeah, if they get down inside the 20, we're not punching it in. So you're probably getting a field goal, baby.
And usually I'm taking those bets right after we get the ball. Right. If once the team gets the ball past the 40-yard line, the
Right.
field goal, it's going to drop to like minus 150, minus 180, something like that.
Yeah.
Um, Other things not on the Denver Broncos, Lamar Jackson over rush yards. I think we've really crushed this year. Russ under pass yards. I've looked at that. And then the last one is under on Thursday Night Football. This week it was 38. And then at halftime, the score was 10-3, and the over under was still 35. So I really love that, even though there was one week where there's an aberration and it hit. Just keep nailing that. Um, Other things for this Broncos Jags game, I'll just toss out the Broncos under has hit 6 of the last 7, despite it being super low. And Jacksonville under at their last 8 of 9 home games has hit. So I know they're not playing at home, but just the mere fact that the Jacksonville Jags aren't a huge scoring team as well, they can't make this under low enough for me not to put a little taste on that. We'll see if it shows up in my best bets.
That sounds reasonable.
Oh, yeah. And since we don't want to spend a ton of time talking about a terrible team, I figured we'd jump in a little bit on some Sharps versus
Real
Joe's action to
quick,
see. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I know we talked about Judy. I wanted to get you and Dan's take. Would you deal Chubb? I know the report came out that if we lose this week, they're going to, try to recoup some of that draft capital and be open to moving Chubb and Judy. I know we've talked about maybe Judy is kind of a locker room cancer and thinks he's a little better than he is and what his production has said he is. How do you guys feel about potentially getting rid of Chubb? Obviously, he's up for money. He's had a good year. What do you feel?
Yeah, I would start with what's the price? If we're getting a first rounder, if we get a first rounder for Chubb, I'm totally fine with it. He's a generational talent. I get that. I think he's going to be very good, but he's in a contract year. And we have a luxury at that position with Baron Browning, who looks just as good. And he's healthier. He's going to cost significantly less for the next 2 or 3 seasons. And we need draft capital. We have no offensive line. We have so many needs on this team. So that's my take. What do you think?
100%. I'd trade him. I'd probably trade him for a second rounder. I don't care.
I was going to say, I don't think you're getting a first rounder. I know he's younger, but I think teams are really protective over first rounders.
What did Robert Quinn go for?
Like a fourth rounder.
Yeah, fourth round. I don't know what it was.
Oh, was it? All right.
Yeah.
Well, he's better than Robert Quinn.
Yep.
Maybe.
And he's younger. I mean, he's less accomplished. Because, think about coming into this year, he hadn't had a sack since the Kendall Hinton game. He's had injury history. Like, there was 100% a reason why the Broncos did not just say, hey, we're going to lock him up before this season gets going. He's looked great this year. I agree with you. He's a strong guy. Reminds me almost of a Cam Jordan in terms of seems like he prides himself on playing the run as well as the pass. He's not just out there, edge rushing real wide, trying to use his speed every time. Like he'll fill a gap and he takes pride in that.
Yeah. Well, I hope they win this week, but if they don't, I really do hope they make some trades. They don't have to sell the farm. You don't have to get rid of Baron Browning. Don't have to get rid of Randy Gregory. But there's real value on Albert Okwuegbunam, who's been inactive for 2 games. Mm-hmm. Why would you not get something back for him? So I don't hate it, Kyle.
Perfect.
All right. Moving on to some Sharps versus Joe's action. I just wanted to call out some huge outliers. Talked about the over-under on the Denver Broncos, currently at 39. 64% of the bets, but 80% of the money is on the under. So there's a little bit of movement there. Other things I want to call out, we've got New York Jets. No, that one's not huge. Arizona Cardinals, Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings are -4, and the over-under is 49. Right now, 12% of the handle is on the under, and 88% is on the over. That's heavily favored, but that's a pros and Joe's kind of bet there. It doesn't feel like a pros versus Joe's kind of week. It's just really be mindful of like where you're betting. Take the time to Google this kind of stuff. We'll tweet it out on Sunday just to give you some final action on it. Looking at this thing, Kyle, anything stick out to you?
No, nothing crazy. I'll just say this is the week that you're going to have to, similar to last week when I'm betting the Commanders with Tyler Heineke, right? Like it doesn't feel good to be like, yeah, I've got Heineke against Rodgers. Here we go. But, or there's some ugly games. Like, for example, one of my best bets is going to come from the Commanders-Colts game. This is not a game that the average fan wants to watch or has thought a lot about. But I think there's an advantage there. And so I think this is a week where you're going to see some late line movement just because there's going to be almost no Joe money, if that makes sense. Like no Joe, unless you're Indy or from the Commanders, is putting money there.
I love that. Any feel on that game? I
have strong feelings.
Okay, I assume it's in your best bets.
Oh, it certainly is.
Tease that.
One that I didn't get in there that I'll talk to you about here is Panthers Falcons. I didn't want to put it in just because I don't quite trust it, but the Falcons can't get any pressure, and PJ Walker is totally fine if he's not under pressure. And so the Panthers are going to be able to score. You've got the Panthers held Lamar in check. They held Daniel Jones and this vaunted Giants. Their defense is really good. And if the Bucs lose tonight, which, they were underdogs, the Saints are underdogs, and the Panthers win, they're tied for first place. So with all of the stuff that's happened, so I don't think they're trying to give up on the season. Everything we've heard says that they like the interim coach, and obviously anyone is better than Matt Rule. So I think there's some momentum there, and I think that the Falcons have been doing it a little bit with smoke and mirrors, and they're maybe not as good as their record suggests.
Yeah, and speaking of that game, I think there's first of all, I love the breakdown. Love what you've talked about with the Panthers. We should get into their division odds in a minute. But for this Panthers-Falcons game, for moneyline bets, 35% of the bets are on Carolina and 36% of the money. Likewise, with the Falcons, 65% on the Falcons, 64% of the money's there. So I feel like the Sharps might be waiting just to hammer Carolina at the end on that one, and I'd look for some late-line movement there.
Yep.
Are the Panthers in the NFC South?
They sure are. It's them, the Saints, the Bucs, and the Falcons.
I'm pulling up the odds right now. NFC odds 2022. The Falcons 3-4 are plus 390. The Bucs are minus 225. Oh my gosh, so it's changed. The Panthers are plus 1600 right now. There's some real potential to do some bets on this division. Falcons plus 275, Saints plus 1,000, Panthers plus 1,600. Wow.
Yeah.
You could take a couple flyers on the bottom two teams and really have a wonderful breakout if it hit.
Right, which everyone seems mediocre to bad. So
I'm curious to see how Andy Dalton plays this week, since they've benched Jameis turnover machine.
Yeah. They liked what they saw from Andy. They said, dude, 2 pick sixes before halftime? What could be improved upon?
Yeah.
No feedback. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
As the coach said at halftime. What do you tell Andy? Keep doing what you're doing.
Maybe they're just going anti-Broncos, thinking like, hey, your quarterback threw 2 touchdowns and a half. We don't want to be like Denver. Let's put some points on the board one way or the other.
Right.
Jumping out of the NFL, unless there's anything else we want to touch on, I did want to get into the Denver Nuggets, who I feel like is really going to be our strength for the rest of the year, as we have just hammered them in the past. Of course, Ryan Poland hitting that plus 900 bet on the Nuggets versus the Los Angeles Clippers to win the series, versus the Nuggets and Utah to win the series in the bubble. We've made money on the Denver Nuggets. Things I wanted to point out: Nikola Jokic plus minus, which we bet on multiple times last year, looking strong. We would bet for the Nuggets when he was on the court, against them when they were off the court, doing quarter, halftime bets. Right now he's top 20 in the NBA in plus minus, but the bench is significantly better. They're about even on their plus minus, so that's a little different for me. I'm not going to be nailing it as heavily. And then Kyle, what I wanted your take on was, first of all, like any early Nuggets bets that you're looking on, and then I wanted to walk through the schedule, if that's all right.
Yes, absolutely. So the main thing I wanted to go over is that I think everyone, at least locally, who's plugged into the Nuggets is like, man, we have so much more talent. This roster fits together better. It makes more sense. And in a playoff series, it absolutely does make more sense. But as we've seen, Bones is still a significant downgrade from Monte Morris as a backup point guard. He's had, he had the one breakout game versus the Warriors, and every other game has been not good. And so the things to take out of that is that the Nuggets are still minus 52 in the minutes that Jokic does not play. Or I'm sorry, they're plus 52, minus 78 in the minutes
plus
he doesn't
52
play.
When he's plus 52
when he's on the court. Yep. So
wow.
As much as things change, they still say the same right now in terms of, I know, you made a killing at the home opener, or I'm sorry, not the home opener. Oh yeah, it was the home opener. Where you just said, okay, Jokic is sitting down. I'm going to take the other team to get back in this game. Hey, Jokic is coming back in. I bet we're going to go on a little run here, right? And you just placed, probably 6 bets within the game, and we're winning just all of them just based off of that trend. And so I think that's still a productive trend and still a trend that you can take advantage of with this Nuggets team. Jokic is still absolutely the guy that keeps everything going. And then the other thing that I really wanted to keep an eye out on is that Bruce Brown overs, when you get Jamal sitting for rest or you get Porter sitting for lumbar spine management, which is a terrifying thing to hear about a guy that you're relying on. Like, oh yeah, we just got to rest his spine. Like, oh man, we hope that gets better. He should be good to go Friday. His spine was just a little sore. But Bruce Brown is the perfect player to play with Jokic, and he obviously had a huge first quarter. He went over his points in that game. He's shown to be very willing to just, cut and then also just be in the right spot for the open three. And it sounds like the Lakers' strategy was that they were short closing out to him. And Bruce Brown was kind of talking stuff to LeBron about it. Like, I don't think this is it, man. So at least early in the season, I think there's some value there. And then sadly, I don't know if we want to talk about it or not, but there's some value in under Jamal Murray's threes because that shot looks baroque currently, which it is nothing wrong with it. I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about anything with this team until the All-Star break. Like, that's when I'll really start evaluating what they look like. But in the interest of telling you how to make money on this team, if you see Jamal Murray threes at 1.5, you bang the under right now. And you will print money.
Yeah, I don't hate that call out at all. If you recall, Jamal Murray, his first few games in the NBA, I think he started over 24 on field goals. So him coming back rusty in game minutes, especially when his career's been based off of his explosiveness, it's not surprising. It's very sad, and he'll get it back.
Yeah.
Definitely. I wanted to call out your Bones Highland stat there, so I didn't notice this. But as you were talking about him, I pulled up his plus-minus thus far. 5 games of the season. Denver at Utah, -9. Denver at Golden State, his one good game, +13. Versus OKC, -15. At Portland, -18. Versus the Lakers, a game we crushed in, -1. So I think you're right to say that. And I'll look to continue to play that game with fading when Jokic is off the court. Jumping on in now to the Nuggets schedule coming up. Maybe just the next 4 or 5 games we can talk about things we'd be looking for. Tomorrow, of course, they're hosting the Utah Jazz. And let me see if I can pull up the spread for that one. They lost the first game of the year, of course, to Utah. And I don't know if that line will be out until tomorrow. Nuggets Jazz line.
Yeah, I can't imagine it will be, especially with not knowing about Porter yet. I imagine they're going to want to wait on that. But this team, 7. I mean, they have a lot of shooters, is what I noticed the first time we watched them. I mean, even going with Olynyk, he's a good shooter. Lauri Markkanen, I don't know what it is. I mean, even last year against us at home with Cleveland, he looked unbelievable the first game. Like, he just shoots the hell out of the ball versus this team. And so I think, something to look out for is Markkanen over there. But I think that the Nuggets should take care of the Jazz, especially since the Jazz are coming in with only one loss. I think this Nuggets team was embarrassed about what happened. I think they'll be pretty locked in here. And if the Jazz could not stop the Nuggets, it was just the Nuggets were playing zero defense. So I think they will play 10% defense, and that'll be good.
I remember that the line for that first game was +7 for Utah at home. My guess is for this game and Denver, you could see a closer line to +8, +9 for Utah, though they've earned a much lower line. Don't know if I would touch it pre-game. Would definitely look for that. Jokic on the court, maybe take him, and maybe even a little bit of first half action because you expect the Nuggets to come out angry, and they will play better defense than they did in that home opener or that road opener where they just looked terrible. Next game after Friday is Sunday at the Los Angeles Lakers. If Anthony Davis is out of that game, I don't see why you wouldn't take the Nuggets where it should be plus money.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see what happens. The Lakers are traveling to Minnesota, and I, for multiple reasons, hope that the Nuggets win, or that the Lakers win. I'm sorry. One, Minnesota in our division. I'd love to see them take a L there. Two is that I think the Lakers it is going to be kitchen sink time for the Lakers 5 games in. They are not going to want to start 0-6. At home. And so I think in front of the home fans, you're going to see like LeBron treat it like a playoff game, and no thank you. So I hope that they beat the brakes off the Timberwolves, and maybe they can come in a little more relaxed there. But that's a tough game. And I hate this new schedule where you see teams so often, like, within 2 or 3 games of each other. There's one where the Nuggets play at Dallas twice in a row. It's just like, okay, thanks.
Thanks for 2 losses.
Yeah. So
we got that last year with Memphis, 2 games in a row. It was just terrible.
But not a good time.
Not good. Nuggets strangely have a weird opening schedule where they have a lot of games versus some teams we expect to be poor, but then they only have one homestand longer than 1 game before Thanksgiving, and that's the 2-game homestand they just went on, which Jazz and Lakers. So they're on the road a lot. They're traveling a lot. I'll be curious to see how they come out of this. And we'll see if they're a good road team like they were last year, setting a franchise record in road wins.
Yep.
Next game, just next couple I'll list because we don't need to break down the spread on each of them. We've got Nuggets at Thunder, Spurs at Nuggets, and then Nuggets at Spurs. So we could be looking at a little 5-game, 6-game win streak. They're going to be favored in almost every single game. And that feels great.
Yeah, just keep in mind, Clippers, they lost to OKC tonight, right? So, I mean, these teams, like you said, that we thought were going to be really poor, since everyone's getting some W's, there's no pressure on these teams. Like, no one has to start tanking game 1. So I think the point that you brought up is huge, that it's kind of a disadvantage to play these teams early because they are going to be doing some heinous trades. If Beasley keeps hitting like that, the Jazz are going to trade him. They're going to be like, well, you're too good. Get on out of here. Danny Ainge is going to fire sale that team if they keep playing well. So I think that OKC's dangerous. The Spurs have dropped a lot of points on teams here early. They've been feisty. But, I think if you're the Nuggets, you want to go 3-1 in your next 4. And I don't care who they lose to, but I want them to go 3-1.
The Jazz are playing so well that I saw on the Jazz Reddit today, someone asked, did we make a mistake trading away our defensive specialist, Patrick Beverley? So I love the optimism there. Hopefully it continues for a Jazz team, but you're right. Danny Ainge is building a championship
they honestly,
team.
For the Denver fans, they remind me of when we traded Carmelo to New York. And it was like, they don't really have a star, but when you look at their rotation, you're like, hey, none of these guys suck. Like, if the game is close down the stretch, I have no idea who they go to if Kelly Olynyk isn't going to throw in ugly game winners for them. But, like, all those guys have been in the NBA a while. All of them know what they're doing. All of them know how to play. And so, like, there's value to that in the regular season, right? Like, they're just not going to beat themselves. They're going to be patient, get themselves good shots. All of them play within each other, like within themselves. Like there's no one besides Clarkson at some point will be heat checking out there. But other than that, they're kind of a smart team, and it's interesting to watch just how far that can get you in the league. And you understand why coaches just want their GMs to sacrifice young players for veterans because they're like, this kid's an idiot. Like, he's so dumb. But obviously, we're seeing that with the Nuggets, like you said. The highs of Bones, and if we can get Bones comfortable running that second unit, he's so much more skilled than other options. But absolutely, there are veteran backup point guards that would do a better job right now, right? They just know how the NBA works, and they would just get guys shots and get us in the offense and, all that. But you got to take the risk of, are we looking to win a championship? Okay, we need the highest ceiling.
I give Malone credit because when he came into the NBA, he played Jameer Nelson over Jamal Murray because he wanted wins versus wanted the development time. But you saw with the Golden State Warriors the last 2 years, they played Jordan Poole. He sucked, and then the next year he was ready and helped him win a championship. We played Bones Highland last year. We're playing him this year because we know we're going to need him. Yep. And that's the sign of a good coach.
Absolutely.
All right. We've talked Denver Nuggets basketball. We've got our spread bets in. Hopefully you make some money. Follow us on Twitter for that one. We've done some great Deets Teach moments talking about taking the Thursday night NFL unders and the value that is on the under because you can't go low enough. Let's get into our best bets, and I want to start with the current leader. Kyle, you're wrecking, man. Let's go through your picks.
Yeah, so I'm looking to obviously I'd love a 3-0, but I'm just trying to keep going 2-1. Just stay consistent here. So I'm sticking to my rule of never doing a teaser. And so I'm staying away from teasers. I'm staying away from parlays. I'm staying away from all of those. And that's been good to me the last few weeks. So first thing is I've got 49ers minus 1.5. They are in LA, but they are not really in LA because there are no LA fans. This is going to be a home game for them. They absolutely own the Rams. They have covered 6 straight times versus the Rams. Even the playoff game they lost, they won still. Or they covered. So this team is unbelievable against them. The Rams have not beaten a good team all season. All the Rams do is beat bad teams right now, and beat them barely. And I think this Rams offense sucks. I don't think that they can score. I think that even with Debo being a little banged up, I think Ayuk, Kittle, and McCaffrey are more than enough to get it done. And obviously Shanahan owns McVay. So I love this. This is free money to me. I can't take this one strongly enough there at 1.5. My next one is a little bit of a take your medicine. I talked about it earlier. I've got the Panthers plus 4.5. They are playing against Atlanta. This is an Atlanta team that, like I said, I think they're kind of smoke and mirrors. You are also hitting at over 60% this year if you're taking underdogs that are 4 points or more. Obviously, it's been low scoring. It's been very close. I don't trust the Falcons to do this. Like I talked about the stats of the running quarterbacks. I don't think Mariota is going to be able to run, and Mariota throwing the ball has been pretty terrible. So I like this Panthers team. And like we saw with the Bengals, the Panthers had a good secondary, but a really bad line. And now their secondary's banged up. So now their secondary sucks, and they're not going to get any pressure. We saw DJ Moore have a huge game last week. He was sitting on my bench in fantasy. It was a real bummer. But I think that PJ Walker is just fine here. I think that there's real value in this Panthers team. And this was a team that, like, I know had we as a podcast, we were kind of on them as maybe a wild card sleeper in this division. And I think now, because of some of their ugly play and because Baker Mayfield was literally the worst QB in the NFL, they lost some of their spark. And now I think they're getting some of that back. And so I think that's good. And then a team that was good to me last week, I'm going to the well again. The Commanders' money line, baby. No Wentz, no problem. Obviously, the thing that I worry about is Heineke variance. We've seen him have some truly horrendous games here. But Sam Ehlinger is a day 2 pick. This Colts team can't cover anyone. All the news coming out is that this was not Frank Reich who made this decision to bench Matt Ryan. It was the owner, Jim Irsay, coming in and telling him to play Sam Ehlinger.
Wow.
We just saw Washington just shut down the Packers. The Packers scored a late touchdown to get that to 21 points. And that was against a Packers team that it has a really good quarterback, but not altogether great wide receivers, right? Whereas now you have a team that has, besides Pittman, terrible wide receivers and a rookie quarterback, Sam Ehlinger, who people are going to be hyped up about off of the preseason. Also the Commander, what a second string young quarterbacks hate. They hate pressure, and the Commander's defensive line is nasty. And so I think Sam Ehlinger is going to be running for his life. I like this a lot. And I think that Colts team has a terrible vibe. And anytime your owner is saying what's happening on the field, then your coach is a lame duck. Players are going to feel that. This Colts team sucks. Just give me the money line. I don't need the 3 points. That's fine. I'll take money line plus 126 here. And so, yeah, those are my 3 picks. What say you?
I love the value there, especially I want to read you this stat. So 49ers 1.5 spread, according to sportsbettingdime.com for their public versus sharps, 94% of all bets are on the San Francisco 49ers at 1.5, and 77% of the money. So not a lot of people taking the Rams, not even the sharps. Love all your bets there. Specifically, I love the Panthers 4.5 pick. I'd even be curious to pepper a little bit of a money line play there. I don't know, maybe jumping on the PJ Washington trade too much, but love your picks. I'm going to jump in with mine before Dan. Do you want to do Ride's picks? Think about that. We'll get into that. Want to start with Denver Broncos at the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. Trevor Lawrence is terrible under pressure, one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. And the Denver Broncos defense looks phenomenal. I think they're due for a bounce back week. I'm not going to talk too much about this since we've already broken down the Broncos. And then I'm going to get on the New York Giants train. They've stolen so much money from me. I think I'm buying them at a decent price because I'm getting at plus 140 at Seattle. Seattle's had a great year. It's a great Cinderella story. They have a lot of talent on that roster. But I'm buying the Giants. Let's go. I'm getting them at plus 140. The last pick I do want some help on. So I was thinking Green Bay plus 11 at Buffalo, just because I think Aaron Rodgers has had a tough couple of weeks. But I just saw that Eddie Lazard is out for the game, and I don't feel great about that number without their top receiver. So the other play I was thinking about was Broncos Jacksonville under 39.5. Broncos offense is terrible. Their defense is amazing, and it just lines up well with a young quarterback who struggles under pressure. What say you, gentlemen?
I like the under 39.5 more than I like Green Bay plus 11.
Great.
Those guys, the Green Bay is terrible. They are really, really bad. And so I think that the Packers could absolutely get smoked here. And so I don't want to be against the Bills in any way, shape, or form. I agree with you that this is typically something that is maybe sharps worthy. Aaron Rodgers on Sunday Night Football, he's unbelievable, his record. Yeah.
First time in his entire career that he's been an underdog by double digits.
Yeah.
That includes his rookie season.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't win often when he's a touchdown underdog by a touchdown or more, but he is 3-1 against the spread. There is some value there for sure. But I just think that London, it's always a slow start. Players' bodies are still there. Russell Wilson didn't sleep. He was too busy doing high knees, so he's going to be tired for the whole game. The only thing I worry about that thing going over is the turnovers, like you said. I think Russ has shown an ability to throw it to the other team, and then, like you said, Lawrence, I think he'll throw one or two.
Yeah,
if between those two bets, I would go under 39.5, but obviously they're your best bets, so that's just my input, and you do what you will.
Love the feedback, taking your advice on Broncos Jacksonville under. I don't feel great about the New York Giants money line, but I'm getting plus value there, and I think the odds make sense. Jumping into Ryan's bets. Ryan, you are in our thoughts, man. Hope everything's going well for you. He should be back next week. We'll get into his personal stuff. Dan, you're invited as our super producer, the undefeated producer from the back all season, to take us through the picks that Ryan has selected.
All right, we'll remain undefeated then. Ryan has 49ers, Rams under 42.5. He's got Latavius Murray anytime touchdown, plus 190. And Rodgers anytime interception, plus 140.
Love the positive odds he's getting on that Rodgers interception. That's such a great play, and I'm jealous.
Yeah, I like the Latavius Murray as well. Murray looked pretty. Obviously, he's gotten the majority of carries, and then also he is getting the majority of the goal line carries there. And Russ has shown that he is terrified to run down there, and we're definitely not going to sneak it from the one. So I look forward to the handoff from the shotgun at the 1 yard line for the Latavius Murray touchdown.
Is Melvin Gordon still injured?
He is not. He is probably going to start again and play not a lot of downs, despite the fact that Latavius Murray looks whatever the opposite of explosive is. Stuck in mud is what I would say. There was one play against the Jets where it was like, oh, that's a 30-yard run for any NFL running back. But Latavius Murray got tackled after like 6 yards. It's just like a defensive tackle just ran him down. He was like, I'm sure he just turned around and was like, damn, all right, this is where I'm at.
Well, he did not fumble the ball, and that's a priority to me these days.
Apparently.
Surprise, surprise. Well, if you've stuck with us to the episode, you've learned a little bit about gambling against Las Vegas. You've got 9 excellent picks, I believe, another 3-0. And you've hopefully enjoyed yourself on an evening with the Revenge of the Average Show sports gambling hosts. Tune in for Revenge of the Average Show after dark if you're going to stick around. Otherwise, thanks for joining. Nice work, guys.
Nice.